40 million people every single week. That's how many Americans tuned in to watch one man make them laugh during the early 1970s. His name was Flip Wilson, and he wasn't just funny, he was revolutionary. He became the first African American to host a successful variety show on national television, breaking barriers that seemed unbreakable. He won Emmys. He won a Golden Globe. He made the entire country smile during one of the most divided times in American history. And yet, despite all of that, Flip Wilson still doesn't have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. How does that even happen? How does a man who changed television, who paved the way for generations of comedians, get erased like that? If you love uncovering hidden legends like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Let's rewind to the beginning, because Flip Wilson's story doesn't start with laughter, it starts with pain. He was born Claro Wilson, Jr. on December 8, 1933, in Jersey City, New Jersey. He was the 10th child in a family that was barely surviving. This was the Great Depression, a time when putting food on the table wasn't a guarantee, it was a miracle. His father worked whatever jobs he could find, anything to keep the lights on and the kids fed. But it wasn't enough. His mother, exhausted and overwhelmed by the weight of raising so many children in such poverty, eventually left the family when Flip was just 7 years old. Imagine that moment. You're a little kid, and one day your mom is just gone. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. And suddenly, everything changes. With his mother out of the picture and his father unable to care for so many children, young Claro and several of his siblings were placed into foster care. But this wasn't just one foster home. Reports say he moved through at least 12 different homes before he even became a teenager. 12 sets of strangers. 12 times starting over. 12 times wondering if anyone would ever really want him. That kind of instability does something to a child. It shapes you. It hardens you. But it can also teach you how to survive. And that's exactly what it did for Flip. Even in those dark, uncertain years, he discovered something powerful: humor. Teachers noticed it. Social workers noticed it. Every foster family he stayed with remembered that this boy could make anyone laugh. He'd crack jokes to diffuse tension, to make friends, to protect himself. When you're a kid in that situation, you either shut down or you find a way to make people like you. Flip chose laughter, and that choice would change everything. By the time he turned 16, Flip had enough of the system. He dropped out of school and lied about his age to join the United States Air Force. And man, that decision became the turning point of his life. The military was tough, especially for a young black man in the 1950s, but Flip found something there that he'd never had before: a stage. Fellow airmen quickly realized he was the funniest guy on base. Whenever the pressure got too heavy, whenever the exhaustion set in, Flip would crack a joke or do an impression, and suddenly the whole room would light up. His commanding officers noticed too. Instead of giving him regular duties, they send him to entertain the troops. That's how naturally gifted he was. It was during this time that he earned a nickname that would stick with him forever. One of his buddies looked at him one day and said, "You're always flipping out, man. You're a real flip." And just like that, Claro Wilson Jr. became Flip Wilson. When his service ended, Flip returned to civilian life with no money, no family connections, and no clear path forward. But he had something else: confidence, and that sense of humor never left him. He started working odd jobs: bellhop, cook, mail clerk, but his mind was always on comedy. People at work would tell him, "Man, you should be on stage." Eventually, he listened. In the mid-1950s, Flip started performing stand-up at small clubs in California. And let me tell you, it wasn't glamorous. There were nights when he slept in his car, scraping together just enough money for gas and a cheap meal. But that grind, that hunger, it came from those early days in the foster system. He knew what rock bottom looked like, and he wasn't afraid of it anymore. If anything, it fueled him. He performed anywhere he could: bars, military bases, coffee houses. His act wasn't like other comedians at the time. He didn't rely on vulgar jokes or anger. Flip's humor was smart, fast, and full of personality. He'd mimic people, tell stories, switch voices like he was a one-man radio show. People remembered his energy. He could turn a simple story about getting a haircut into a 10-minute masterpiece. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated, so make sure to subscribe for more untold tales. And then, the breakthrough. During one of those early gigs, Flip caught the attention of another comedy legend, Red Fox. Now that's important. Red saw something special in Flip. Both men came from tough backgrounds, and both used humor as a weapon against pain. Red took Flip under his wing and helped him get booked in better venues. He even brought Flip to perform at some of his own shows. That friendship was a game changer. Through Red, Flip met more comedians, more club owners, and he started getting steady work. But it wasn't just about the gigs, it was about the confidence. Flip started realizing he could hang with the best of them. In the early 1960s, he began appearing on television for the first time. Small guest spots on shows like The Tonight Show and The Ed Sullivan Show. For a black comedian back then, that was no small deal. The entertainment industry was still heavily segregated, and most networks didn't believe a black comic could appeal to a white audience. But Flip didn't play that game. He wasn't just a black comedian, he was a comedian, period. His jokes didn't rely on race. They relied on wit, on human truth, and that's what made him stand out. Flip had this universal appeal. He could make anybody laugh, white, black, rich, poor, because his comedy was rooted in things everybody understood. He'd talk about relationships, money, faith, everyday struggles. He'd make a joke about church and have the whole room in tears. You didn't need to know his background to get it. You just had to be human. And people loved that. By the late 1960s, Flip Wilson was a household name on the comedy circuit. But network television? That was still a dream. Then, in 1970, NBC took a chance. They offered Flip his own variety show, not as a guest, not as a sidekick, as the host, the star, the creative force. And just like that, the Flip Wilson Show was born. It premiered on September 17, 1970, and it changed everything. Within months, the show became the #2 rated program in America, pulling in over 40 million viewers every single week. 40 million. That's not just success, that's cultural domination. But here's what made the show so special. Flip wasn't just funny. He was smart. He was sophisticated. He created characters that became icons. The most famous? Geraldine Jones, a sassy, confident woman with one of the most memorable catchphrases in television history. "The devil made me do it." People loved Geraldine. They quoted her. They dressed up as her. She became a pop culture phenomenon. And Flip played her with such charm, such wit, that audiences of all backgrounds couldn't get enough. The show won 2 Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe. Flip became the first African American to win an Emmy for writing. Think about that. A foster kid from Jersey City who slept in his car just a decade earlier was now standing on stage, holding an Emmy, proving to the world that black excellence could dominate primetime television. For 4 years, the Flip Wilson Show was unstoppable. It featured musical guests like Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and the Jackson 5. It featured comedy sketches that rivaled anything Saturday Night Live would do later. And through it all, Flip maintained something that was almost unheard of for a black entertainer at the time. Full creative control. Every joke, every guest, every sketch, it all passed through his vision first. But behind the laughter, something was breaking. The pressure of producing a weekly variety show was relentless. Flip was writing, performing, managing, and carrying the weight of being a trailblazer all at once. He had endured 2 failed marriages. He was fighting custody battles over his children. And despite making millions of people laugh every week, he felt empty. Fame is a strange thing. It can give you everything and take everything at the same time. Flip once said in an interview, "I spent so much time making everyone else happy that I forgot how to make myself happy." That line hits hard, doesn't it? Here's a man who brought joy to millions, but inside, he was struggling. The grind was wearing him down. The fame was suffocating him. And in 1974, at the absolute peak of his career, Flip made a decision that shocked Hollywood. He walked away. No big announcement, no farewell tour. He just quietly stepped back from the spotlight. He later said, "When I stop being funny, I'll stop showing up." And that's exactly what he did. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Flip tried to find peace. He had made enough money to live comfortably, but peace of mind, that was harder to come by. He bought a modest home in Malibu and focused on raising his children. Those who knew him said he was a devoted father, playful, funny, protective. He didn't talk much about show business anymore. If people brought it up, he'd smile and change the subject. But even though he lived quietly, Flip was still Flip. He couldn't help being funny. His neighbors in Malibu would see him at the grocery store or gas station, cracking jokes just to see people smile. That was his natural rhythm, finding joy in small things. He also became deeply spiritual later in life. After years of chaos and fame, he started exploring faith again, reading scripture, meditating, spending time with close friends who shared that side of him. It was like he was trying to balance all the laughter he'd given to the world with some peace for his own soul. In 1983, he made a rare return to television with a small role in the sitcom Charlie and Company. The show didn't last long, but fans were thrilled just to see him again. His energy was different, though softer, more reflective. He wasn't chasing laughs anymore, he was just being himself. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Flip appeared occasionally on talk shows and awards ceremonies. Each time he stepped on stage, audiences cheered like it was 1971 all over again. You could tell how much people still loved him, how much they missed that warmth. But Flip was never one to stay long. He'd give a short, humble thank you, flash that famous smile, and quietly disappear again. As time went on, he avoided interviews and the media altogether. He once told a friend, "I already said what I had to say through laughter." That's how he saw his legacy, not in fame, but in the joy he brought people. By the mid-1990s, Flip's health began to decline. He was diagnosed with liver cancer but chose to keep the news private. Only his closest friends and family knew what he was going through. He never wanted pity. That was just who he was: strong, proud, private. Even as the illness progressed, Flip stayed calm. He spent most of his time at home, surrounded by family, watching old movies, listening to jazz, and reflecting on his life. He didn't fear death. Those who visited him said he still cracked jokes, even from his bed. "If I can make you laugh," he said once, "then I'm still alive." On November 25th, 1998, Flip Wilson passed away peacefully at his home in Malibu at the age of 64. The news hit the entertainment world like a wave. Comedians, actors, and musicians from every generation paid tribute to him. Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, and Red Fox had all called him a trailblazer. Younger stars like Jamie Foxx and Chris Rock said Flip showed them that black comedy could be mainstream and sophisticated. In the days following his death, reruns of The Flip Wilson Show aired on cable networks, reminding everyone just how groundbreaking he'd been. Audiences laughed again, cried again, and realized that this man who had once made the world stop and smile had quietly left it without asking for applause. No scandals, no bitterness, no dramatic farewell tour. Just grace, humor, and peace. That was the Flip Wilson way. When people talk about comedy legends, they often mention names like Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, or Dave Chappelle. But here's the truth. Before any of them, there was Flip Wilson. He laid the groundwork. He was the one who showed America that a black comedian could host, produce, and dominate primetime television with grace, wit, and power. Flip didn't just make people laugh, he changed what laughter could mean. His comedy wasn't cruel or divisive. It was clever, universal, and full of soul. He broke down barriers without ever preaching about it. In an era when racism was still thick in the air, Flip used humor as a bridge. He showed that you could address social truths and still keep people smiling. He taught a generation of performers that you could be funny and still be dignified, that comedy didn't have to come at the expense of your identity. His influence is everywhere. Eddie Murphy once said that watching Flip as a kid made him believe he could do it too. Tyler Perry's Medea character, you can see Geraldine Jones's DNA all over that. From In Living Color to Saturday Night Live, the sketch format that Flip mastered became the model for decades of comedy that followed. And let's not forget representation. Flip Wilson wasn't just the first black variety show host, he was the first one to do it his way. He had full creative control. That means every joke, every guest, every sketch passed through his vision first. For a black entertainer in the early 1970s, that was unheard of. Even today, when you see a confident comedian who blends character work, satire, and charm, you're seeing a little piece of Flip Wilson in there. This twist shocked the world, and if you never want to miss stories like this, subscribe to Legends Underrated today. Man, when you really think about it, Flip Wilson's story is both beautiful and heartbreaking. Here was a man who came from nothing, a foster kid who turned pain into laughter, who went from telling jokes on Air Force bases to becoming the first black superstar of network television. He made the world laugh, broke down walls, and changed what comedy could look like. And yet, despite everything he achieved, there's still no star for Flip Wilson on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. No little piece of marble with his name carved in gold. It doesn't make sense, does it? A man who made millions smile, who brought people together, who literally helped shape modern comedy, forgotten by the very town he helped build. That's the part that hurts. But maybe that's what makes Flip so timeless. His worth was never about trophies or stars on the ground. It was about the impact he left behind. You can still feel it today. Every time someone says, "The devil made me do it." Every time a comedian tells a smart joke that crosses lines without hate. Every time a black performer stands center stage and owns it, that's Flip Wilson's legacy shining through. He showed us that laughter could heal, that comedy could unite, and that you could be proud of who you are while still making the whole world laugh with you. So yeah, maybe Hollywood never gave Flip his star, but for those who remember him, the fans, the families, the comedians he inspired, he'll always be one. What do you think? Does Hollywood owe Flip Wilson that star? Or is his true legacy bigger than any piece of concrete? Let me know in the comments. Rest easy, Flip Wilson. The devil didn't make you do it. You did it all on your own.